Finding yourself in a comfortable seat or getting yourself to a comfortable seat, whatever that means for your body in this moment. And as you settle, maybe wiggling a little bit just to really feel things shift and fall into place. Taking a few clearing breaths. Welcoming yourself into your practice, welcoming yourself into this new day. And perhaps inviting each breath in your body to feel like a rebirth, fresh energy, a chance to begin again. And that's essentially what happens with every breath that moves through our bodies. There's a sense of renewal that comes in with the inhalations, and then there's a release, a letting go with the exhalations. So as you go through this practice, relying on the breath as your anchor, and trusting that your inner wisdom will lead you to do or not do any part of practice to adapt where you might need to adapt. And you allow yourself to go with the flow when it feels right to do so as well. Allow your eyes to softly close if they haven't already done so. And letting your attention drop into your inner world to feel the breath as it moves in your body, to the listening of subtle whispers and information as they percolate into your field of awareness. Body, heart, and mind begin to speak if you allow yourself to drop into that inner listening space. This little check-in giving you a snapshot of where your practice begins. Knowing that when you get to the end of practice and step into the remainder of your day, some of the sensations, the bits of awareness that are coming to you in this moment may linger, they may stay the same. But most certainly there will be aspects that will carry a different light, a different tone or flavor to them. So the courage and the willingness to let things shift and change as you go through your practice. And inviting the breath to gradually grow and expand. Inhaling, the belly inflates, the ribs expand. And you're seeing if you can find that moment where your body is so full of that inhale that there's no room for anything else to enter. And there's a little tiny pause at the top, a kumbhaka. And then when you're ready to exhale, you follow that breath all the way to emptiness, where you become aware of contraction and drawing inwards to the subtlest degrees in your body, finding that moment of emptiness. Another kumbhaka or pause, hold. And then you cycle back into the next inhale. Fullness, renewal. And the exhale, emptiness and release. And you'll come to stay with this deeper expression of breath for another minute or so. Allowing for some of the extra attention on the breath to fall off. Still breathing deeply, inviting the hands to join at the heart center, or maybe just stack them one on top of the other over the heart, or heart and belly, whatever feels good for you. And from this hopefully more centered and stable space, we offer the sound of Om 3 times to formally open practice. If you don't feel like chanting this morning, maybe you just hum. The intention is to bring the sound and the vibration from the deepest part of you, letting it ring out. We'll take a clearing breath in and let it go. Fine sound. That sound fading, allowing the hands to come away from the body, eyes open as they bring the light back in. Let's take our bodies over to all fours, starting in that space of tabletop. Fanning out nice and wide through the fingers. Feeling that connection to ground, and then we'll promptly tuck the toes underneath to start to wake up the feet. And from here, let's find cow and cat. So with the inhale, invite the belly to drop, let the crown and the tail gradually float. And then exhale, pull that belly button towards the spine, drop the head, the tail. Using that depth of breath that we just carved out to kind of lead you between these two positions. And noticing how your cow and cat might feel a little differently with this extra attention to breath. And the next time that you're releasing from a cat pose, let the spine come long, untuck your toes, give your feet a little bit of a break. Take the hands wider on your mat. So I've got my thumb and first finger still anchored to the mat, but everything else is hanging off to the side. So that might be the case for you, or maybe it feels better to take the hands all the way off the mat. Just seeing what works for you, and maybe your fingers need to angle out slightly as well. And just feel into that for a moment. So from here, we're going to take the right leg out, tuck the toes underneath, and just push back into the toes, into the ball of the foot. Maybe a little bit of a pulsing there just to get into the calf and the hamstrings. Maybe even up into your glutes. If you're really tight, you might feel it there as well. And then we'll come to float that right leg up, parallel to the ground. So we're keeping the hips level. Hug in through the core. And then slowly release, bend into the knee, drop it back to the floor. Take the left leg out, tuck those toes underneath. Get that little bit of release starting to work its way through the backs of the leg. Maybe a little bit of pulsing, or maybe you're more of a fan of holding and just feeling that out. And from here, we float the leg up parallel to ground, keep the hips level, breathing, engaging subtly through the core for some stability and support. And then letting that go, bending into the knee, dropping it back to the ground. Tuck the toes underneath. We're going to lift into a wider expression of downward facing dog. So that's why we took the hands a little bit wider moments ago. As you're ready, use your exhalation to lift you up. Hips come high, extending into the legs right away. Walk the dog for a moment. And then you'll stabilize, legs long. Take the feet to the wide edge of your mat. So we're getting really wide and spacious in this down dog this morning. And play around. Maybe you need to move your hands. If shoulders are feeling tricky, maybe you need to come out of this or just find a dangling pose a little bit sooner. Let your body wiggle around here. Curious about the space you've created with this wider expression of downward facing dog. Shake out your head side to side, up and down. And then little by little, let the gaze come forward and walk the feet through towards the top of the mat, towards your hands. Release the fingers, the wrists, roll and wiggle. Maybe you feel you need to shake out the shoulders. And with your next inhalation, let's start to bring the body up towards standing. Just taking your time. A few little shoulder rolls as you find your way towards standing. A few deeper breaths. Just giving yourself a moment to acclimate to this being fully upright again. So we're going to do a little bit of dragon wing this morning. So we'll start with just working with the shoulders and the arms, and then we're going to add some leg stuff into it. So standing however you're comfortable. I like to have my feet about hip width apart. We'll do a few gather and sync the chi rounds before we come into the dragon wing. So letting the hands come in front of the low belly. As you're ready, inhaling, scooping the arms up and overhead as you gather chi. And then we're going to sync, push the energy down through the center. So letting that first round be a gathering of the ill-serving stuff and letting it release. And from here, we invite in clear energy, embedding it into all the parts of your being as you sink it in, whatever it is that you need for sustenance and support right now. And let's do one more round of this gathering, the positive energy, and sinking it in. Good stuff. So with the dragon wing, it kind of looks like goddess, where we bend into the elbows, palms face forward. However, when we come into the dragon wing, we really pull down and back and open across the chest. So it's like you're trying to crack your upper back here. And it's the exhale that carries you into this, stretching across the chest, little tiny back bend, and then we'll release. And then you'll inhale, bring the arms up again. Exhale, pull down on those elbows, pull down on those wings, squeeze, feel the strength, and then let it go. We'll do that one more time, coming up. Draw down, opening wide, getting that little back bend, and then release. So stepping near the top of your mat space if you're not already there. Sending weight into your right foot. We're going to float the left leg up, find a little bit of balance. So make sure you've got somewhere to focus on that's ahead of you and ideally unmoving. And then we're going to float the leg, step it back, and land into kind of a high lunge. So from here, let the wings float up. Pick up that left leg. Let the palms face forward, a light bend in the elbow, doing your best to balance, but if you're a bit wobbly, that's okay. Exhaling, slow and controlled, step back with that left foot, let it land. Take a big breath in, reach your wings high, and then exhale, pull down, get that dragon wing happening, little back bend, opening across the chest. And then we're going to inhale, straighten the right leg, reach up with the wings, and exhale, sink in, bend into the knee, drop those wings. And again, inhale, up. Exhale, sinking in with those dragon wings. Letting the breath get a little bit fiery. And then we're going to fold forward, keep the bend in the right knee, and let those wings push out behind you, bowing. Inhaling, coming up. Weight into that right foot. Push off with the left foot and see if you can come back to that balancing. Might be a little stutter step, just like I did. Maybe you've got full control this morning and you do one big sweep. And then we let everything go, hands down to the side, foot to the ground. Pause and feel. Resisting that urge to shake or wiggle that might be present. Drop those arms and shoulders down and away from the ears. Find your breath again. Seeking that full expression where the lungs, the body is so full of air on the inhale that there's no room for anything else. And then the exhale, that complete emptiness and pause. Body weight starts to shift into your left foot. Your awareness comes back into your space. Getting ready to do that little dragon play the other way around. So we start with the balance, floating the arms up, palms facing forward, picking up the right leg. Breathing here. Slow and mindful, stepping back with that right foot, letting it land, bending into the left knee. And then we draw down, pull the elbows down, squeeze the shoulder blades, find that first dragon wing here. And then we inhale, reach up, straighten the left leg, palms stretching forward and up. And exhale, draw down. One more time. From here, keeping the bend in the knee, fold forward over that left thigh, wings sweeping out behind you. Inhaling, coming up. Preparing to push off with that right foot, step forward, see if you can regain that balance. And then we release, foot to the ground, arms to the side. Let the hands actually come to the low belly, that Dan Chen, and pause here. Gradually bringing ourselves down towards the floor. Let's inhale, gather chi, scoop the arms up and overhead. Exhale, sink the chi down through center. And then keep going all the way down into a forward fold. Bend into the knees if necessary to get the hands to the ground. Step your way back to downward facing dog and make it wide again. Feeling into that extra bit of space. And if it feels okay for the body, playing with a little bit of dragon, swinging its tail. So anchoring into the left foot, let the right leg come up and just swing the leg around. And then you'll bring that right foot down, let it land, and we swing the tail the other way, letting the left leg float and just play around. And we'll let that go. Left foot lands, one breath here. And as you start to exhale, lower the knees down towards the mat. Send your hips back towards the heels. Some version of child's pose that speaks to you right now. And just allowing yourself to sink in, regain that deeper connection to breath if it started to fade with that bit of activity. Slowing things down, continuing to expand. And we'll come to lift ourselves up. Set the hips off to a side so you can break the legs around in front. And our first yin pose will be Dragonfly this morning. So taking the legs nice and wide. Finding that achy spot where you're fully aware of some tugging and pulling through the groin, the inner thigh. And if you've got that little rear tilt to your pelvis, take your blanket or the rolled edge of your mat and tuck it underneath your sits bones. So we're flexing into the feet here for a moment. Really curating that sense of tension in the body. Maybe even squeezing into your buttocks, your glutes to feel extra tension in the body. And then you'll let that go. Allow the legs to relax. And start to settle in from here. So maybe just being upright with the legs wide is enough of a sensory game for you that you'll stay here. And over time, as we encourage the muscles to relax and the body to still, those initial edge lines and resistance points might start to shift for you. You might feel there's more room accessible little by little. And if that's the case, the invitation is there to explore the possibility of curling and rounding forward if it makes sense for you. No straining or striving. We're not trying to force ourselves further or deeper. Gravity will take care of that progression for us. Just keep bringing yourself back to breath over and over again as you continue to adapt into your dragonfly. Where else might you be able to let go? Doing your best to use that cycle of renewal and release to your advantage here. You'll come to dedicate 3 more breaths to your dragonfly pose. And after those 3 breaths, if you feel ready to move, just mindfully doing so, taking your time, gradually lengthening and then releasing the width of the legs. Let them come closer. Feel the relief move in and just hang back to be with those sensations of release in your body. And we'll come to lift ourselves up. So we're going to come over onto our sides and do the lying Buddha pose now. So if you have particularly sensitive hip bones, you might want to put a blanket underneath for a little bit of padding and support. Setting up for the lying Buddha, we come onto elbow and forearm. And you're looking for that place where everything feels pretty stable and supportive for the shoulder. And ideally the legs stack one on top of the other. There's a bit of a balancing act that happens when you first set up for this. And if you find you're incredibly wobbly today, then just bend into the knees a tiny bit just to stabilize the lower half. And we let the body sink in here so the shoulder can slide up towards the ear. Gaze can turn down. Beautiful deep breaths. And hopefully over the course of this pose, breath by breath, moment by moment, you start to feel this slow release traveling from the lower ribs all the way up towards the armpit, the shoulder, into the back body as well. And because of the sensitivity within the arms in particular, we don't stay here for quite as long. Trusting in the process, finding those moments of surrender. Five more breaths while you're here in the lying Buddha. And to release out of this whenever you're ready, bend into the knees a great deal more. Plant the top hand to the ground so that you can free the bottom arm, and then lower down into a fetal position and pause here. You'll come to roll yourself over onto your other side, setting up for the lying Buddha the other way around, because of course we have to balance everything out. Start by taking care of sensitive hip bones, and then propping yourself up with elbow and forearm, stacking those legs, maybe a tiny bend in the knees to just provide that extra bit of support. Top arm does whatever makes sense, resting on the side body, dropping behind. Allowing for the shoulder to ride up towards the ear, and at the same time the head turns down, looking for a relatively comfortable position where minimal effort is required to keep the head in place. Little by little sinking in, ribs draping themselves towards the ground. And breathing here. If you're experiencing resistance in your body, how can you be with that and potentially work with it rather than feeling this battle of for and against? Maybe it's just that one mindful, deep, attentive breath that gets you to that place. Five more breaths to your lying Buddha. And after those 5 breaths, just letting yourself settle down into fetal position again. So using the top hand to brace and boost as you slide the bottom arm out. Draw the knees closer towards the body and let yourself rest here. As your body continues to integrate, the invitation is to roll onto your belly on the mat. Set up for the prone resting, stacking the hands, making a little support for your forehead, and just lowering down and in there. Using this opportunity of being face first into the earth as a way to reintegrate that deeper breath, to follow the inhale to its fullest capacity. Observe that little kumbhaka, the pause, and then gradually trace the exhale all the way to empty, feeling the natural contraction that happens, and then observing the pause there as well. Three more breaths while you're laying prone. And to come out, bringing the hands underneath the shoulders, gently pushing yourself up and away from the mat. Tabletop for just a moment, that flat back, tucking the tailbone, feeling the length coming into your spine. And we then set up for a wide-kneed child's pose, so letting those knees slide open out to the side. Toes can come towards one another, making kind of a tadpole position. Let the hips sink back towards the heels as best you can. And then choosing the position for your upper body that makes the most sense for you. Maybe it's stretching long and reaching far with the arms for an extended child's pose. Maybe you feel you need to do that little stacking of the hands, keeping everything a little bit closer. So figuring out what it is that makes sense as you make this wide child's pose your own, and then settling in, being with that perspective of the deep breath from this vantage point. And offering up another breath or two to your child's pose. And when you're ready to transition over onto your back on the mat, just being really mindful of how you go about that movement. When you get there, inviting the knees in towards the chest, let yourself rock for a moment. And then we'll bring the feet down towards the ground. Just let yourself hang out in this neutral space for a moment, witnessing your body as it settles. Spinal twist. So we'll cross the right knee over top of the left one. Pick up the hips, scoot them out to the right, set them down, and then allow for the legs to twist off to the left. And if you'd like, you could play with stretching out that right leg away from you, seeing how that changes your perspective, and also playing with the reach of that right arm. Maybe sliding it along the floor until you find a spot that elicits an interesting sensation. And then we pause here for a few rounds of deep breath. One incredibly deep inhalation through the nose. Let it go with a sigh. Bend into the right knee if you had stretched that leg out. Bring everything back to center. Square off the hips underneath. Pause into that moment of release. And creating our twist the other way around, crossing that left leg over top of the right one. Picking up those hips, scoot them out to the left, set them down. Twisting those legs off to the right. And maybe playing with that extension factor with the left leg. And also being curious about sourcing some interesting release and sensations in the left arm by letting it travel along the floor for a moment or two. And being with those nice deep breaths. Your next inhale, incredibly deep. And sigh it away. Bringing everything back to center. Pausing. And then based on your own intuitive nature, what setup for final resting makes sense for your practice today? Feet to the ground, stretching open into pentacle, turning over onto your belly once again for prone resting. What works in your world right now? And once you get settled there, let all the efforting and concentration around the breath dissolve. Just feel your body getting heavier and heavier as you drop into that space of ease and rest. Sounds of the bowl, bringing your awareness back to you, to your space. Coming to observe breath, body, heart, and mind as they are now. And from this place, allowing for intuitive movement to emerge as you start to wake yourself up and gradually find your way back towards sitting as you're ready. Just taking your time as you get there, no rush, no script to follow, just whatever feels good. And as your body returns to length and space, to a seated posture similar to where your practice began, let the hands come to body or to join at the heart in Anjali Mudra. Gratitude towards yourself for that precious courage and willingness to step on the mat and practice today. And an offering of thanks to all the puzzle pieces that fell into place to allow us to connect and share these practices. A single Om to close, clearing breath in and out. Finding sound. I thank you for your practice. Namaste.